Hey guys, how you doing? We got Patty Dominguez here. She comes from the world of the Fortune 50 with over $1 billion for the brands behind her, routinely consulting for giants like Kraft Foods, McDonald's, Chipotle. You've probably heard a few of these things or even consumed them yourselves. She's also the co-host of Boss Free Society. She's done over 150 guests out there of entrepreneurs who have fired their bosses just like she did. In order for us relaxation, she can also be found face down in your yoga mat in your local studio. So Patty, take it away. How you doing today?
I am awesome. Daryl, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an honor and a privilege. You already have a great roster of people that you've had on, so I'm a fan already.
Thank you. So one of the things, Patty, I want to take away is Patty and I know each other pretty well. We know each other, God, just over 2 years now. And one of the things about Patty is she is one of those individuals who is constantly always looking to stay in integrity of what she does and give value. And I know we're going to get all kind of gold nuggets from her today, but I know she also comes from a hard work. She has this work ethic that she was brought up in. And I want to get inside her mind a little bit today so you guys can see how hard this woman works and what makes her successful and what she actually does. So Patty, what was your first entrepreneurial experience?
So from childhood, you mean? Like going way back when?
First one ever. First thing you remember about being an entrepreneur.
Well, I would definitely think, or I recall being around 8 or 9 years old, and I remember going to the candy store and seeing that there were different chocolate bars. And at the same time, those world finest chocolate bar fundraisers would happen, where they give you that big white box of chocolates and you'd sell the chocolates for $1. So I didn't really understand business. I don't come from an entrepreneurial background whatsoever. In my immediate family, my grandmother was very entrepreneurial, but I saw that the regular chocolate bars at the drugstore we used to get them were like, I don't know, 35 cents, 40 cents. And I'm like, well, why don't I just buy those and sell them for $1? And I started doing that a little bit on the side for a little side hustle. And then I got called out. And then I got in trouble from a teacher who said, hey, you can't do that. Why would you sell those for $1 when you can get them for 40 cents? And I said, well, it's just convenient, right? And if the world's finest chocolate people can do it, why can't I? So I was always just asking like, why, or why can't I do that, or just experimenting or pushing boundaries. And unfortunately, here's where I think the value of a great mentor is absolutely priceless, because I wish I could have harnessed that thinking. I believe it's innate in some instance, that where you're like, okay, well, I have a seed of entrepreneurship in me. So it's just a matter of watering that seed so it flourishes, right? So just always had that in the back of my mind. Like, how can you make extra money? How can you make extra money? So the way that I learned it was just to get jobs. I've always had even 2 jobs in high school where I was just constantly seeking out different ways to earn just income.
And fast forward a few years, I know you got into to school and you're working for some of these large brands and stuff like that. Coming from the corporate America background and being stuck and kind of pigeonholed, I know there was a point where you were crawling around that cubicle and your stomach was turning and you were just ready to get the hell out of there. Kind of talk to us a little bit about what it was, because, transitioning from, again, you didn't have any mentors. I was growing up who were entrepreneurs directly. They were mentoring you. It's like you had your parents directly, and your parents, I know they worked in the factory. What did your dad do? Is a mechanic?
Yeah, well, my dad was a car painter his whole career, and my mom was a factory worker. They came from Central America, and their big dream for my brother and I was for us to get an education, because they knew the value of an education was their way out of just that the blue collar mentality, the blue collar jobs that they had to take and unfortunately struggle a lot with. They're really hard. And so growing up, I went to an all-girl Catholic school. I was one of not a whole lot of minorities in the school. And growing up, it was just, completely inculcated in us to go to college. I never thought I wouldn't go to college. My big struggle was understanding what my career options were. And so growing up, it was just the responsibility that I had to go to college to find a good job. And my dad's biggest dream was for me to get a door, AKA an office, to have a cell phone and a really nice car. That's what his example of being a success was. So I was very much groomed to climb the corporate ladder. At the same time, and this is something that you helped me with, is I always thought that it had to be a hard a struggle, that it always had to be very difficult. And so me climbing that proverbial corporate ladder, it was hard. It was difficult because I made it hard on myself, like taking on different jobs and always looking at what the next position was that I wanted to get to climb the ladder. And so what started happening was the higher that I got, the happier I thought it would be. And as it turns out, I was just more miserable. And when I was climbing that corporate ladder, it came to the point where I was involved just in different projects and being privy to different types of situations where people were let go. And I was just a part of the decision-making process in a way. And that stuff really affected me. I just don't have a stomach for it. And that's when I knew, I was like, okay, I don't know that I can do this, and it really came to a halt when in 2008, right when the financial collapse happened. At the time I was in management consulting, working a lot of hours and traveling a lot, and just, completely by surprise, a whole brigade of people got let go. And so to me, everything that I thought that I was building, it got taken away from me. And really just understanding that my job is not an asset. That was a real turning point for me, is understanding that your job is not an asset, and understanding that and I always say this, like, I'm no different than the French fry guy at McDonald's. Like, my job could be taken away at any moment. So there was a sense of helplessness that came along with it, because it completely turned everything that I thought that I knew to create a safety net for my family. It just pulled it all away. And then I was like, okay, well, that is crazy. So I always believe everything happens for a reason, and perfectly positioned to teach you a lesson. Somehow, somewhere, I got the book from the famous book that everyone's read from Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that literally, I was like, what? I have to understand more about this whole entrepreneurship thing, and just understanding how to get in the right quadrant, because what I was doing is trading my time for money. And I knew that that wasn't a formula for success. And I had proven it, because I was pretty much without a job in 2009 for, I think it was 10 months. As everybody knows, the economy was awful. And at the same time, that seed of inspiration about entrepreneurship came into me, and I joined, just by happenstance, again, everything happens for a reason, a network marketing company, never having heard of anything with MLM or network marketing. But it, again, just kind of opened the thought process of entrepreneurship being possible. So for that, I'm super thankful with what I learned there.
So let's look into that, because there are some things there, just to kind of go back through the mindset you had. So your dad had this vision for you that you were going to get the office, and you were going to work hard, and you were going to have the nice car and everything like that. And you achieved all of that, correct?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And you did it in spades, and you continue to do it. Is that a vision that you had for yourself growing up, or is that something that, because that's what your dad said, that you kind of lived into that?
I definitely think it's something that was encouraged by my parents, and I lived into that, because all kids, innately they want to make their parents proud. I experiment. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So let's focus in on that. So right there, and that talk about the slot is like your mind, again, is a hologram for what it is you concentrate on, what it is you focus on, you're going to get. If you focus on something that you don't want, you're going to get more of that. If you focus on something you actually want, you're going to get more of that, because your mind has to figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
So in doing so, your mind gives you exactly what it is you wanted. Had you been around and, like you said, read Rich Dad Poor Dad several years prior to that, I know that was a book that I've read and completely changed my mindset around things. I thought I was going to be in the Marines for the next 20, 30 years. Right.
Yeah.
And it just ultimately changed and altered my mind around, money, and there was a different way. And it's like, wow, why aren't more people reading this? Why aren't people learning about it? And it's cool. So you kind of, again, golden nugget there is pay attention to what it is you're concentrate on. What is your focus on? Number two is invest in books, invest in education. That's something that's outside of the classroom, because those two things there, had they changed early in your life, then your life would be completely different. Not to say it'd be better or worse. Another thing too is, so for anybody who is in the blue collar field, that is hard work, in the sense of, like, I think, thing is like, at the end of the day, that's actually the one field you can't outsource. You can't outsource somebody who's giving a haircut, or somebody who is a mechanic, or somebody. I know mechanics come in the house, they charge you $200 an hour to work on your car. Or your plumber shows up, it's $150 for them to show up at your door. is what it is. So, I mean, there's the other side of it too, where, realize that, am I trading the time for money type thing? And it's like somebody said a quote to me the other day around like, are these, wages for slave, and that kind of stuff, or slave wages, so when you kind of break it down, you look at it a little bit, is around the mindset, and how did you go about, because I knew it wasn't just all peaches and gravy for you, as you were changing your life around. What were some of the biggest things you actually got as far as like turning your the biggest, one of the biggest failures at your point? I remember at the point in your entrepreneur career that you got started, right before, I mean, you went down that road, you had to go in there at that nice office you had where you knew what you're going to get paid, and you were frustrated, your stomach was turning over, you had to walk in that office and then eventually walk up to your boss and tell him what did you say? I mean, what was the mindset walking in that day when you walked in that door and you knew that you were walking in there and you no longer were going to work there?
Oh my gosh, that was it was a very defining moment, because ironically, the universe will test you in different ways. I had been offered a promotion that I turned down. And then literally about 3 days before I was planning to give my notice, I got a stock option award that I had to give back. And so that stock option award had a comma in it. So it's pretty cool to receive that. And that came along the lines of the performance that I had in work. Because that's the one thing, is that to me, it was really important to leave on a high note. But it was just so interesting how these things kept coming up to test me, like, how serious are you? And that's what's going to happen. It's happening now. I mean, it happens all the time. It's just the universe testing you, like, how bad do you want it? I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's absolutely true. And so I had to turn down the promotion. My boss at the time was really surprised. He's like, wait a minute, you're being groomed for that. You're a high performer in this company. And he didn't understand. And I mustered up the energy and really made a careful decision that is absolutely what I wanted. And this is very telling for me, especially right now. But any time that you feel the pain of not being in alignment, is because you're not supposed to be there. It's like your internal gut, or whatever you want to call it, gearing you. It's like a compass. And if you feel that pain of like, oh, I just can't do it, it's because you're headed down the wrong path and you're supposed to be on another one. So that's the pain that I was having and staying. And me turning down those things like the promotion and the stock options made sense. And when I made that decision to leave, it was the right one for me. What I didn't understand was the mindset required after I got out of being an employee, because it's a totally different mindset. And it was a struggle.
Let's focus in on that. So you walked in that day. What was it that you said to your boss, and how did you transition out of it? Because I think that's one of the biggest fears, a lot of people have, is like, how do I have that conversation with whoever this is? And then am I burning this bridge forever? Like, what's going on? I'm scared. I'm nervous. Like, what were the thoughts that were going through your mind?
Yeah, well, I had a lot of self-doubt. I had a lot of like, wow, am I really going to do this? And at the same time, I was careful not to tell too many people, because the people that I told, coworkers or friends, thought I was absolutely nuts. They're like, wait, why would you do that? That doesn't make sense, because you have all these kind of pieces of the puzzle and it's all coming together for you and it's going to get you to the next level. And yet you're turning it down. Why? Like, they just couldn't understand that, So be very guarded about how many people that you tell. At the same time, I had hired a coach to help me transition and make the decision. I absolutely believe if I didn't have that coach, I wouldn't have been able to do that, because I would have been tempted by the promotion, by the stock options. And I probably would have stayed. And who only knows, I probably would have had a heart attack already by now, because that was in 2012. So that it was a hard decision. But I really, to answer your question, getting aligned with what you want, having somebody that you can speak to help guide you, and having the right type of coaching is, in my opinion, absolutely essential to make that transition and to get you into that right frame of mind to move forward in the new direction.
Yeah. Because if you're talking to the people out there that were at your work and you're having all the success and all that stuff, that's really great if that's what you want. And I find it to the case of like, when you look around the office and you see people that are doing things that you basically, is this where I want to be 15, 20 years from now? You know, so tell me about what it was like looking 15, 20 years from now at the people that were there. Were they doing what you actually wanted?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that one of the things that kept coming up in anticipation, or just kind of validating the decision that I wanted to make to leave, and just as convincers, like you call them convincers, Daryl, was okay. I just want to make sure that I'm really serious about this decision leading up to it. Is because I would go and I would talk to different people. I'm like, hey, how's it going? They'd be like, I'm hanging in there, you know, or I would just see different people who were absolutely miserable and caught up in this just ebb and flow of constantly complaining, constantly bitching about something, right? I didn't get the right raise. I'm on this crappy project. That person's bothering me, just in a super low vibration in general. And what I just came to understand is like, this one guy that I was talking to, it was a coworker of mine at the time. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he asked me, he's like, listen, I just have to get through 8 more years and then I can retire. And there was something about that looked, the look he had of misery. And for me to think like, you want to be miserable for 8 more years? I mean, he looked super stressed out, not a healthy person in general. And to think that that was his mindset, it was so contradictory to everything that I was reading and everything that in that moment I was really grooming my mindset for different types of thinking. And it just was completely opposite. And all that I knew is that that was an example of what I didn't want. So that to me was very simple to understand. I was like, that's not the road I want to be on. And it was a convincer for me that, yep, me making this decision to leave is the right one for me.
That's the basic thing. You just look around, and then you went, and I think one of the things is after leaving, you did meet another individual who was very instrumental. And I think it was an event you were at, and you were frustrated. You were sharing, you went to see Kurt Molly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Share about the conversation you had with him. And, you know, I mean, you're at a low point right now. You're frustrated. You don't know what to do. You're kind of confused. Tell us what it was like being there as an entrepreneur, and you hadn't earned a nickel yet.
Right. So I'll put it in a context. So I left my job, and then I went through this whole emotion of like, oh my God, I finally did it. I'm super excited that I was able to leave my job. And at the same time, the reality finally sets in, like I left my job, you know, and I was really caught in overwhelm, anxiety, a ton of fear. It was awful. I remember I met up with a girlfriend of mine who was a coworker about a couple of months after I quit my job. She just wanted to check in. And she's like, oh my God, I can't even talk to you. Like, you're just a ball of anxiety. And I said, I really think I screwed up. I don't think I made the right decision, this and that. At the same time, I had scheduled to go to a conference. And at this conference, I met a whole bunch of entrepreneurs. And I always feel like all the good conversations happen after the day is over, right? Over at the bar or at dinner. And I remember there was a group of entrepreneurs who were just kind of sitting around, internet marketers, network marketers, all kinds of people sitting around talking about their business. And I just remember listening in awe. I was like, oh my God, you guys are so together. And I met at that table Kurt Molly, who is absolutely instrumental for me for many reasons. But he said, he's like, well, how are you doing? What are you working on? And I said, well, and I started to talk about the experience that I had in corporate. He's like, oh my God, you can parlay that into something really cool, you know, with coaching or whatever. Okay. Seed number one. I was like, oh, okay. And then the other thing is I was starting to say, I feel so much anxiety though about like quitting my job, is because I'm not sure if we're going to make it. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, my husband and I have saved up a year of my pay. So we carefully planned for it. We saved up a year of my pay in order for me to leave, so that if I didn't work, or if I didn't make $1, at least we had 12 months as a safety net. And he's like, and how much more time do you have? I said, well, like 10 months. He's like, you're freaking out and you have 10 months worth of pay? And then he said to me, he's like, are you effing kidding me? And he looked at me and he looked at the guy across. He's like, what? Like, it was just like they couldn't even compute. And then he said to me, which I'll never forget, he goes, entrepreneurs, we just create new money. That's just what we do. So you just have to create new money. And I was like, what? That was just such a pivotal moment for me, because it shifted everything. And that to me was a huge convincer that that's all I needed to do. Create more money.
And Buster, for you guys can't see here, is my co-host.
Hi, Buster.
He's all about creating all kinds of havoc in that, aren't you, Buster? So guys, here's the thing, big golden nugget right there. Entrepreneurs create income at the end of the day. We come up with ideas, we turn ideas into income. And then that's what Patty does with her clients now. And Patty, if you could share some of the branding tips that you have along the way and some of the ways you're helping your entrepreneurs turn their ideas into income, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Daryl. Thank you. So now basically what I'm doing is coaching. So it's pattydominguez.com. And I really break it down to 3 different parts to what I help my clients with. It's branding. So really creating a brand that is remarkable so that you're capturing mind share in people's mind of what it is that you do. And so having a very strong, unique selling proposition so that you stand out amongst the sea of whatever it is, competitors, whether you're a coach, whether you're a fitness instructor, whether you're an NLP professional, right? So you definitely want to stand out and in a very remarkable way so that what you do is shareable and really succinct and meaningful. And so that's the first part. The second part is automation. I mean, we live in a time where I always say, like, being an entrepreneur has never been more exciting because you can create different income streams for yourself. Let me give you a great example. I have a client of mine. Her name is Sonia Rodriguez, Hollywood celebrity makeup artist, phenomenal presence, especially on Instagram. Really just a go-getter, really beautiful presence, very poised. And she has a mastermind and she does some high-ticket coaching. We had a really quick discussion one day. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Coming up with her. And she was talking about how she was having really great success, multiple 6-figure earnings. And I said, well, you have all these assets in place. You have all these recordings that you have. Have you thought about creating online products or automating some of that? And she's like, I really know exactly what you're talking about. I just don't know where to get started or how to do it. So don't worry about the how. There's always a resource to do the how, but it's like leveraging the things that you have to further extend the story of what it is that you do and the value that you provide. So this is a great complement to what she's doing, creating this automation in her business, which is a completely passive income stream. It's so cool. Like she sent me a text the other day. She's like, this is awesome. I made $2,500 this week, completely with content that she had come up with last year in 2016. And then scaling is you can have the best product in the world, but if you don't have the right traffic.
Hold on. For a second, real quick. So there's some old information that she had already on her laptop computer somewhere, and you turned it into $2,500 last week.
Yeah. And she literally got started in it. It's not old. I will say everything's relevant, but I will say it's stuff that she created last year that was just sitting there dormant, not old, but dormant, correct, right? Just sitting there waiting for it to be taken and put into something and creating, different online products for her has been super beneficial. And we just literally started scratching the surface. So it's super exciting.
So if I was listening to this and I had a list of, 500,000 emails or bunch of people on Instagram and all these type of people, what would you say to me?
If you had a list, well, that just means you have a captive audience of people waiting and willing to engage with her. Or in her case, she had people ready and willing. It's a great thing. So she built up very consistently her social media following. Now you have this great audience that knows what you do. It's just some tweaks and then some different offerings. And then they're just clamoring to get more of her, right? Of what it is that she does and her expertise. It's a great position to be in.
Mm-hmm. So you help that expertise, turn information they've actually created into income for them.
Absolutely.
That's what you do at the end of the
100%,
day. Okay, you take their
100%.
ideas, turn it into income. All right. So the next part of the process you said was scaling. How does the scaling work?
Yeah, scaling is okay. So you have automation, you have great products, you have a great brand, but if you don't have enough eyeballs on it, that's an issue, right? So whether it's having an SEO optimized website or the right type of traffic via Instagram ads or an Instagram influencer campaign, again, these are all examples of traffic to build your list, to sell more products to the people that are looking for exactly what it is that you have to offer. So that's the scale part.
Okay. So once I have a product, and it is converting, then if I have more people that see the product, they're going to buy it more. They're going to buy more of the product, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So brand, automate, and scale it.
Correct.
Makes sense. Awesome.
Yeah, I think so.
And then you're helping entrepreneurs basically take their ideas and turn them into income by doing that through brand automating and scaling them. That's pretty awesome, Patty.
Thank
So
you.
is there any other like golden nuggets you would say you've seen that you've been able to work with some of your clients and, something they could do, right away, like something immediately to bring more income into their businesses? What are some things they could do?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing, and I learned this, or just validated it with Matt Basak, was on the Boss 3 Society podcast, which is a podcast I have. Shameless plug. But he said, and he's like, hey, Matt, we asked him the question, Matt, with everything that you know and everything that you've done, what is that one big major nugget that everyone has to start with? And he said, just generating who your ideal customer is. It really all starts there. So if you haven't done it, you are really missing out, because as much as you think you know your ideal client, but really putting demographics, psychographics to that person, knowing them intimately. I think the highest compliment as a marketer is when somebody comes up to me and be like, oh my God, it's like you were in my head. Like you knew exactly what it is that I was looking for. Boom, you got it. Like that's it. So doing that as a first start is absolutely essential. So don't miss out on doing that, even though if you think it's like, do I really need to cut out the picture? Yes, all the top marketers do it. If you haven't done it, you're missing out, because this is a simple thing. And I think the other thing is, I get this question a lot, especially when you're creating a brand. There's some level of conflict in thinking that you have to lower your price. So you never want to get into price wars, because that really conflicts with really great branding. Great branding stands for itself, depending on the positioning that you're looking to achieve. So if you want to be the low cost provider, then price war yourself all day long. But if you're looking to elevate your brand and create something substantial at a higher price point, don't depend on price wars to help you get there. Because if you do, you're just commoditizing what you do, and that conflicts with your brand positioning. So hopefully that makes sense.
That's a lot. Yeah. So Patty, for them to get more information about that, can they go to your website and opt in, where you give tips and tricks on how to do all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So just head over to pattydominguez.com. It's Patty, PATTY, DOMINGUEZ.com, pattydominguez.com. Or actually, you can even do brandautomateandscale.com, and that'll take you to the same place. And on there, I just have a simple opt-in for that perfect customer exercise that I take people through them with my clients. And somebody like Matt Basak says it, I listen. So it's something that he shared with us a while back.
And the one last question I'm going to ask for you is, what's one of the biggest things? Again, there's no failure in life. There's only feedback. One of those things where, the biggest, lessons you had to learn the hard way that somebody can listen to and not actually have to go through themselves.
Well, I just believe in time collapsing. So I always say a really good coach, a really good mentor is going to allow for their hindsight to be your foresight. And when you allow for that, that time collapses things. It gets you to where you want to get to that much sooner. So that's why, as a coach, you should never be ashamed of charging what you are looking to charge. I learned that from you, Daryl, because if the value is there, the price shouldn't matter. So never think, again, the whole price war thing. If you offer value and you can back it up in integrity, you're going to attract the right types of customers for you. So don't feel compelled to lower your price or to shortcut yourself, because you're time collapsing things for your clients. And that's highly, highly valuable, because time is something we have a finite amount of. So if you can save time, absolutely. At the same time, on the flip side of that, I believe absolutely in investing in myself. 10% of my income goes to great coaching, and that has allowed me to just open up the channels to different thinking, different opportunities, connections, etc. And so for that, it's a line item on my P&L that it's a non-negotiable with my accountant. It's just, I'm not going to not do it. So 10%, that's why you see that the higher level masterminds are that much more, because you're surrounding yourself with higher level people. And so it warrants a higher level price point. So always invest 10% in yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks, Patty. I appreciate it. And again, you guys get a hold of her at pattydominguez.com or brandautomateandscale.com. Appreciate you, girl. See ya.
Thank you.